Ladies and gentlemen, and raster designers, and anybody who wants to learn how to retouch a photo in Photoshop, we are going to do that. Okay, so answer these quiz questions, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure you go to Google Classroom and you're going to get the copy or download the files Handsome Guy and Maui Original. And what you're going to do is make sure you have a folder called Creative Computers, Raster Design Photoshop, Retouching in Photoshop, and then your Assets folder, and get those things into your Assets folder. Then we're going to go to Photoshop, we're going to go Open, and we're going to go into that Assets folder, and we're going to open up Maui Original. Okay? And then we're going to go up here, and we're going to go Window, Workspace, and make sure you're on Essentials so that all these tools look the same for you and for me. And then, okay, this right here is a JPEG. We're going to save this as a Photoshop document. Normally you want to do most of your work in a Photoshop document, so we're going to say save as, and we're going to save it as Photoshop.psd. And this is no longer the original. This is our retouched version. Okay, so we're going to name this Maui Retouch. And it's not the asset. This is actually the main project. And so I'm going to say Maui Retouch. Now for some reason this has taken me a while. So this is Maui Retouch V4. Yours won't be V4, but rename it Maui Retouch and make sure it is a Photoshop document and save that. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to crop this thing. So we're going to go up here to, well, that's not the first thing. That's the second thing. First thing we do is save it as a Photoshop document. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to crop this. So we're going to go to this crop tool and we're going to click, and you can see there is the rule of thirds. So we know that our subject should go there, 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 and our subject is not quite where it should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here a little bit. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to move this down here like that. So put that subject right there in the PowerPoint. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And okay, so like I said, so we got our foot where we want it in the PowerPoint, but we've got this ugly blank space here, but we'll figure that out in a second. But what I want to do is show you a tool. So we're going to come over here and we're going to find the remove tool, and we're going to get our brush to the right size. So probably right there. And all we do is just say, we just brush around. I want to get rid of that. And it's going to look at the pixels around it, and it's going to try to replace it and blend it and match it. And let's see how it does. And it did a pretty darn good job. Let's try again. We're going to do this other dirt cloud. We're going to remove that and see how it goes. And it did a good job. Now, one thing about that is that was destructive editing. Those pixels are gone, and if I press Control-Alt-Z or Control-Z, it's going to get it back. But if I go too long, I'm never going to be able to get those pixels back. Anyway, so that was destructive editing. We'll talk about non-destructive editing in a second. So anyway, so I'm going to use this tool now. So there's better ways to do this, but the regenerative AI is not working for some reason. So I am just going to use this remove tool to remove this white area, and it's going to kind of look around and it's going to try to blend it with the stuff around it. Let's see how it does. All right, so it did a pretty good job. It looks a little weird there, but not too bad. Let's try it again over here. I'm going to increase the brush size to make it easier to select. So we're going to go down here, select that, go right up here, make sure we get all of it, and try that. Okay, so it did pretty good. It looks like we missed one little spot over here. Let's get that again and see how that goes. Okay, all right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the color correction. Step 3 is color correction. Okay, so let's move my head out of the way. So we're going to come over here and we're going to play around with these. Nope, it's not going to tell us. We're going to create a new fill or adjustment layer. Okay, so the fill or adjustment layer we're going to do is hue saturation. And basically, we can play around with it for red, yellows, green, cyan, blue, magenta, but we're going to do it for everybody. And we're just going to play around with this until we get it into a color we like. I kind of like I don't know. Let's see. I kind of like that color. It kind of highlights the sand a little bit. And then you can increase the saturation. You can make it super saturated. I think the saturation was probably about right. And then you can make it lighter or darker. And we're going to put it there. Okay. Now I'm going to do another hue saturation adjustment layer. So we're going to go hue saturation. This one though, I'm going to name this one. If I keep clicking, I can eventually name it. This is going to be sky only, because I'm just going to mess around with the sky. I spelled that wrong, but I think I'll just keep moving. So I'm going to mess around with this, and I'm going to get it. I'm just going to ignore the sand. I'm going to get the sky right where I want it, somewhere right there. Okay, and then on this layer here, I can adjust the opacity. So I can make it to where it's totally see-through, or halfway see-through, or 75% see-through. I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so something intense. Now, I like what it's done to the sky. I do not like it what it's done to the sand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the layer mask, and I'm going to make a layer mask there. And so I'm going to flip-flop. I'm going to flip-flop this from white to black. So I'm painting with black because black conceals. I'm going to go to a brush, and I'm going to adjust my brush size, and I'm going to make it this big. Okay, and so you can see like, oh, I can get rid of some of the stuff. Let me make that bigger. That was probably better how it was. Okay, so I'm going to go to a really big brush, and you can see that it gets rid of that mask for the sand. So I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to go like a really big one because I want to fuzz it in a lot. I want it to be really fuzzy up here, so it just kind of starts to blend in. Okay, so I like that. So it really makes the sky pop. So you can see I went from that to that, really makes it pop. Okay, so as you can see over here that where it's black, it conceals that hue saturation, and where it's white, it actually shows through. Okay, so I'm going to click on this background here, and I'm going to make another fill or adjustment layer. This time I am going to do levels. Okay, so and on the levels it shows you how much black and white you have. So you can see that it's like there's a lot of like pure black in here. So I think probably like something like that would be better. And there's a lot of pure white there. Something like that's going to be better. And we're going to adjust the midtones. Really didn't do a whole lot on this picture. So on some picture. So sometimes like you kind of have your procedure, and sometimes it really does a good job on pictures. Others not so much. This one it didn't really need that all that much, but it's always good to give it a shot. Okay, let's go. We're going to go from levels to curves, and on the curves, it basically adjusts highlights and other things. And again, you can do RGB, or you can do individual colors. And so play around with it. But oftentimes, like a simple S curve is going to make it look dramatic and dynamic. So you can play with different parts of the picture, but something like that. So play around and see if you can create the curves that look good for this particular picture. Okay, so at this point, we've done our color corrections, and we've done all this non-destructive editing. Okay, so we can turn it off, get the original, turn it back on, and see if we like our work. I like our work. Okay, and so what we're going to do now, let me hit Alt and Tab. No, that didn't work. Alt and Tab, that didn't work. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to copy and flatten all of your work into a single layer, but keep all of the previous work. We're going to press Control, Alt, Shift, and E. So we're going to select all of our good work. We're going to hit Shift and click E, and we're going to press Control, Alt, Shift, and E at the same time, and it's going to basically we can turn all these off. You can see that all that work has been put into one layer, and the reason that we're going to do that is so that we can do our final adjustments all together with all the work we've already done. And so now we're going to go filter, and we're going to go to camera raw filter, and we're going to go through some of the main things on here. But some of the main things are the lighting and effects and the details. You can play with all of them. But so let's say that your photo was not bright enough. You could like really brighten it up. Let's say there was not enough light and you didn't have set your exposure right. You can kind of fix some of that here. So for me on this one, I'm going to make it, I think I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. It might look good like making it moody, but I'll make it a little bit brighter. Let's increase the contrast a little bit. So you can play around with these, okay? The color, you can change the temperature. You can make it brighter or you can make it cooler. I kind of like it how it was. And we can play around with the saturation if we wanted to. So on effects, you can play around with the texture. So you can see there's a lot of texture in the sand. So like I can try to smooth that out. So like if you're trying to do like a glamour shot on somebody and you want to smooth their skin out, this might actually be something that would be interesting. I'm going to smooth it out a little bit, okay? The other thing too is you can lighten up the edges or you can darken up the edges with a vignette. I'm going to do a little bit of a vignette on it. And then you can increase the grain or decrease the grain. I think I'm just gonna go there. All right. We've already done some curves, but you can do some more curves if you want. Color mixing if you want. On the detail, this can make a really big difference on pictures, like if it's rocks or water or something. So you can play around with sharpening it, or you can do instead noise reduction. So you can play around with these. And again, on different pictures, it's going to have different effects. So play around with that. And we're going to click OK. And we're going to see what it looks like. So let's turn all these back on so we can see all of our original work. So we can turn this off. That was the original. That's what I came up with. It was a little bit of an improvement. All right, so now we're totally done. And so now this whole thing is a Photoshop document, and only people with Photoshop can use it, and Photoshop's expensive. So let's save it in a format where everybody can use it. So we're going to go File, we're going to go to Export, and we're going to go Quick Export as PNG. And we want to make sure we're in the right folder, Retouching, yep. And so we're going to say Maui, and we're going to call this Finished. So this is the one I'm totally done with. And we're going to save that. All right, so we got that. And that's it. That's it. You can go on to part 2. Let's, if you want to keep listening, you can, because I'm going to talk about these questions. What is the process for retouching the photo? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We just went through them. You can just rewrite that. Why do we follow this order? It's very efficient. It works together. It doesn't work against itself. What's the difference between destructive and non-destructive editing? One destroys pixels, the other doesn't. One, you can like turn it on and off and get back your previous work. Why do we save as a PSD and a JPEG? Why did we save a PSD and a JPEG, or this should actually say PNG? PNG of the same image. The PSD is really good for working on and editing and saving all your good work. The PNG is when you're done so that everybody can use it. All right, now I am totally done.